Now, what is sensory branding when it's at home?
Okay, it's using music and fragrance more intelligently to stimulate customers' arousal levels and also to create or capture a brand's personality. This develops more of an emotional connection with the customer, and if you have an environment that's more appealing to the customer's senses, then they develop a subconscious preference to be there or to go there. So this actually helps build brand loyalty.
What sort of scientific studies do you have that back this up, that we're not just thinking, well, that smells all right, that it's actually making us want to come back and to hang out?
Okay, well, there's been a lot of research carried out over the last 10, 20, 30 years into consumer behavior and how sound, fragrance actually affect and stimulate or suppress the way we feel. So if we look at music, for example, that there's one particular study that was carried out in a supermarket, and they found that by playing low-tempo music compared to no music or high-tempo music, sales actually increased by 38%. Nike carried out an experiment with some trainers. They had two identical sets of trainers. One of the pair was actually given a very light fragrance, and consumers were sent into the two rooms to look at the trainers, and when they came out, they're actually asked, which trainers did you like, which ones did you want to buy, and how much are you actually prepared to pay for them. And they found that the trainers that had been fragranced were actually the preferred choice by consumers, and they're actually prepared to spend $10 to $15 to $20 more for the fragrance trainers than the unfragranced trainers.
Simon, this is Malcolm Taylor. With the Nike study, I mean, how did you do that in terms of the smell aspect of it? Did you sort of have a subtle sort of aroma of the sort of gym changing room or a locker room or something in the area of where they were selling the sneakers?
So we didn't actually conduct the experiment, but it was an experiment carried out with Nike, and it was one of the universities in the United States. So all of this information, it is publicly available. We've got a big library now with probably over 50 to 80 different scientific studies to actually look into this aspect. Now, something you mentioned there was quite interesting, was whether it's going to be having a trainer-type smell. Now, environments that do not smell nice to us, we actually have an immediate reaction to, that we don't like to be there. And what we're actually finding in environments where, for example, in casinos, that they found that if you had a part of a casino where you're allowed to smoke, if you cannot smell that smoke, but people can still smoke, player retention actually increases 30 to 40%. And that was carried out by one of our partners in America, by Brand Aroma. So they're actually able to remove negative, bad odors from the air and enable you still to be in that environment and still smoke, but you can't smell the smoke.
So what aromas say what to us, Simon? What aromas get us spending, and what smells get us staying? What does the human brain perceive as being good or bad?
Well, I think really how we like to look at this, various different angles we want to look at it from. One is from a branding perspective, and that's, what's the connection here? We recently did a big project for DBS Bank, which is Singapore's #1 bank, and it's the fourth largest in Hong Kong. Their whole brand positioning is about being the Asian specialist, the Asian bank. So we're diffusing a ginger flower, which is an Asian ingredient, diffusing that through the air conditioning system. So when you walk in there, you've got a very beautiful, flowery, floral smell. And we couple that with low-tempo Asian music in the background, and that actually complements how they're now renovating their branches with an Asian theme. So this all ties back to the brand positioning as the Asian specialist. So you walk into the branch, you can see Asian, you can touch it, you can smell it, you can hear it. So you're actually having a real dynamic, multi-sensory experience. Moving back on to sort of which fragrances appeal to us, you have things like vanilla, which is intentionally included in baby milk powder. And vanilla is what we call a low arousal fragrance. It has a very calming effect on us. Whereas if you go into the body shop and you buy a revitalizing shower gel, you'll find that has a very high citrus base. And the way we actually respond to that is it revitalizes us, it refreshes us, and it's what we categorize as a high arousal fragrance.
Simon, obviously you've talked about examples where it does work. You've talked about the chill-out music in the supermarkets. You've talked about the smoking in casinos. But the word arousal can be a positive or a negative thing. It basically, if we have a smell or music that we don't like, it can also be a very negative shopping experience and can actually stop us going back to the same supermarket or hotel or whatever it may be.
Totally agree, and that's where panel testing is involved, because what I like personally may not be what you like, and it may not be what your clients may like. So one of the things we do get involved with clients is panel testing, and there's an approach we have that tries to eliminate all of the not so nice ingredients being used, and that's why we work with perfumers, and all of the fragrances we use are developed by some of the leading perfumers, and they're not just using one or two ingredients to create the fragrance. If we look at what's available in the marketplace as in fragrances and air care, I think at the entry level of the market you have the squirt type machines on the walls in public lavatories and places like that. They provide a very economical approach to create some form of pleasant smell in that environment. If we look at the opposite end of the spectrum, you have your fine fragrances like your Chanel No. 5, your CK1s, your fine fragrances, and they have around 55 ingredients. So the actual range that we develop and we diffuse have between 20 to 45 ingredients. So you end up with something that's very sophisticated, and this is partly why project we're involved with is for the Shangri-La, and they'd actually had a signature fragrance developed for them, and that's actually diffused in all of the business hotels globally. So you can go from property to property, and you'll smell that, and you'll remember that that's the Shangri-La fragrance, and to smell, it's the only sense that's directly connected to the brain center for memory and emotions.
Now, you just reading some of the things that you're doing, it reads very exotically. I mean, Changi Airport thinking of introducing an orchid-based fragrance. The boutique hotel in Singapore that's going to use refreshing ginger and lime essence. Yep. HSBC in Hong Kong trialling a fragrance based on lemongrass and lily. It certainly reads attractively. It
does, and it actually, when you smell it and you experience it, what you've actually read really becomes nothing. It's really when you experience it and you walk in there, it's amazing. What we had with DBS Bank, they renovated a branch. They had more positive comments about the fragrance than they did on how the renovated branch looked.
So how do you actually sell the smell, Simon? I mean, are you selling these guys sort of a dozen bottles a week? Is it oil? Is it liquid? Is it vapor? Or do they sort of pay a one-time charge and have a lifetime supply of their smell? How does it physically work?
How we provide as a business is as a service where we provide the technology, the fragrance, but also the management, and also the strategic element, because it isn't a case of someone saying, hi, I like vanilla and I want vanilla. We like to look at how is this going to fit and complement the business. So there's a consulting part as well. It's trying to help them understand who they are and what they are, and the brand isn't just a logo on a piece of paper, but then taking that to the next level and saying, right, who are you, what are you, how are you perceived, how is your retail space designed, how do we want people to move within that environment, and we go through this whole process to identify the right fragrance. That fragrance is then turned into a dry vapor, which is then connected to the air conditioning system for the target area. So that then blends with the treated air, and it creates a very evenly distributed fragrance within that environment. And then the fragrance bottles are actually replenished on a quarterly basis. So clients enter an agreement with us for 2 years or 3 years, and we go through the whole process of loaning them the equipment that we connect to the air conditioning system. We maintain that. We look after all of the fragrance replenishment, and we just make sure that everything runs smoothly.
And how much does it cost? For example, if we were to get a business breakfast fragrance made up, which would probably sort of be Oda Donut with a bit of coffee mixed in, how much would we be paying for that?
We tend to look at it depends upon how large the environment is, but we could be looking at literally something as little as like $10-15 a day.
And does that include the development
yes.
of the signature fragrance?
Yes. Yeah.
That's on a 2 or 3 year contract. There's one example you've given here. BP outlets, presumably the petrol stations in the UK, used to sell 30 cups of coffee each a day. The company started using a coffee fragrance, which creates craving, and sales soared to 300 to 500 cups a day. Now, obviously, we've got masses of petrol stations here in Dubai. We've also got a lot of shopping malls that want to differentiate themselves from each other. What are you doing about attacking the Middle Eastern market?
Okay, Raffles Dubai is our entry client into the market. We've been working with them a couple of months now. We're actually in the process of creating our entity for Dubai, and that'll be catering specifically for that market. So we're in the process now of identifying certain key clients that are going to help us establish ourselves in the market at the right level, and help bring these help these companies create fantastic customer experiences, because I think there's just so much potential for this.
Simon Faure-Field from Equal Strategy, where he is the CEO in Singapore, the smell guru. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.